They say a city's tallest structure reveals much about its character. In New York, the Chrysler Building once held that title, embodying the clash of commerce, artistry, and ambition to dominate the city's skyline. Over time, the city's tallest edifice has changed hands repeatedly, yet the Chrysler remains an enduring symbol in the one place most associated with towering skyscrapers. Now, a new wave of glass-clad office high-rises threatens to overshadow it. Without skyscrapers, Manhattan wouldn't be the vibrant hub it is today. Millions of years ago, when it first formed, its modest geographic footprint wasn't particularly remarkable, and had it remained a low-rise island, it likely wouldn't have risen to prominence. These extraordinary buildings, however, have expanded its capacity, drawing in countless individuals and companies eager to claim their share of opportunity. Skyscrapers are the backbone of New York's identity. These majestic structures have emerged through every phase of the city's history, each one a unique reflection of the era's context and dynamics, shaping the periods that followed. This was evident in the opulence of the 1920s and later in the streamlined modernism of the 1960s. Skyscrapers captured the extravagance of the 1980s, only to face an identity crisis post-9/11, when their purpose was questioned. And now, in the 2020s, they mirror the city's newest challenges. The events of New York are mirrored in its skyscrapers. They serve as tributes to the city's past and quiet architects of its future. New York is far more than just the cradle of skyscrapers. It was forged by them. When you mention New York, skyscrapers are what spring to mind globally. Our skyline embodies vitality and the audacious pursuit of ambition it represents. Joseph Campbell famously noted that a city's tallest building speaks volumes about its driving forces. In medieval times, a cathedral's spire often held that role. In 18th-century towns, it was a political palace, but in 1920s New York, it was the corporate office tower. A symbol of the American dream, built with steel and determination, the skyscraper was the essence of capitalism. The 1920s, a decade of lavish wealth, saw New York overtake London as the world's leading metropolis. This era birthed the Chrysler Building, a radiant landmark proclaiming the city's ascendancy and America's triumphant prosperity. What better represents the American dream than relentless rivalry? "I hail from the Midwest, but my heart always belonged to New York," said Carol Willis, an architectural historian and founder of the Skyscraper Museum in New York. Skyscrapers, whether in New York or elsewhere, are fundamentally commercial ventures, designed to generate profit. The Chrysler Building's creation was driven by the intense competition between two former partners, architects Craig Severance and William Van Allen. Severance was tasked with designing the Manhattan Company Building, now called 40 Wall Street, while Van Allen worked on the Chrysler Building. Both aimed to construct the world's tallest skyscraper, willing to go to great lengths to achieve it. During the design and construction process, each team spied on or leaked the other's plans. The Manhattan Company Building kept adding floors, stretching its foundation to the limit in a frantic bid to outdo the Chrysler, and it briefly succeeded. Completed in 1930, it was the tallest in the world, for roughly a month. Van Allen had cleverly hidden a spire within the Chrysler Building's crown, which was raised into place after the Manhattan Company Building's completion, surpassing it by 36 meters. Initially, many viewed the Chrysler Building as an eyesore when it first graced the skyline, yet today it's celebrated as a pinnacle of Art Deco architecture. It's an unmistakable icon, one of New York's defining landmarks. The Chrysler Building is universally adored. It's such an eccentric skyscraper. Every detail reflects the spirit of its time, Willis added. Its recognizability, its iconic status, holds inherent value. Saying you work in the Chrysler Building instantly tells people where you are. Walter Chrysler envisioned his skyscraper as a beacon of wealth and grandeur, but that vision clashed with the era's end as the 1920s crashed with the New York Stock Exchange collapse and the Great Depression's onset. The city that sparked this global economic downturn had simultaneously erected a 319-meter tribute to capitalism. Unemployment soared, with nearly a third of New Yorkers jobless. The lavishness of the 1920s was gone. Despite the immense effort to make it the world's tallest, the Chrysler Building held that title for only 11 months until the Empire State Building was swiftly completed in 1930. The Great Depression and World War II then halted record-breaking skyscraper construction in New York for 40 years as the city's attention turned elsewhere, a chapter marked by the absence of new high-rises. When skyscrapers returned, they required a fundamental rethink. By the 1960s, New York had transformed. Protests, strikes, and violence marked an era of upheaval and change, demanding a fresh approach. Ornate designs and intricate details no longer suited buildings. Simplicity and utility took precedence. To revive the faltering Lower Manhattan, Japanese-American architect Minoru Yamasaki was chosen in 1962 to design the World Trade Center. He proposed two massive twin towers, stark gray monoliths that epitomized extreme modernism. With clean vertical lines and none of the setbacks or flourishes of the city's Art Deco towers, these structures emerged from a radically different New York. Two buildings, each 110 stories, created 220 acres of office space, equivalent to the downtowns of many mid-tier cities. Yamasaki's fear of heights led to narrow windows, only 45 centimeters wide, covering just 30% of each tower's facade, giving them the appearance of solid metal blocks from afar. At the time, building skyscrapers taller than 80 stories wasn't financially viable due to the space consumed by elevator shafts on the floor plate. Taller buildings meant more occupants, requiring more elevators, especially in non-tapering structures with large floor plates at their tops. This necessitated more elevator banks, reducing rentable space as elevators don't generate income. Yamasaki's solution was sky lobbies on the 44th and 78th floors of each tower, segmenting elevator journeys. This allowed multiple elevators to share the same shaft, reducing the number of shafts needed. This innovation enabled the towers to soar 110 stories, but created a 3-elevator commute for those working above the 78th floor. Structural engineering also advanced to make these towers feasible. Support columns were placed at the central core, like traditional skyscrapers, and around the exterior, creating a box-within-a-box structure connected by horizontal trusses at each floor. This eliminated interior support columns, providing expansive open office spaces. The World Trade Center's Twin Towers were an anomaly in New York's skyscraper history, not only for being the tallest globally, but also because they were government-funded. The towers opened in 1973 to a public that had grown skeptical. Costing the equivalent of $4.5 billion today, the project was criticized for diverting funds from public transit. Some Lower Manhattan residents resented being displaced, and critics likened the towers to giant filing cabinets or the packaging for the Empire State and Chrysler buildings. Over the next decade, however, they became American icons, boosted by films like King Kong, Superman, and Manhattan, and Philippe Petit's daring 1974 tightrope walk between them. The Twin Towers became inseparable from the city's identity. Bold hairstyles, grand visions, and towering structures defined the 1980s, an era of risk, excess, and flashiness, where subtlety was abandoned. If you acted, you did so audaciously. Architecture shifted from the restrained lines of the 1960s to something more flamboyant, an age of bold experimentation and clashing styles. New York itself was a different creature in the 1980s. The Wall Street boom and declining unemployment fueled real estate, yet the city grappled with record crime and skyrocketing murder rates. It was a place of contrasts, division, glamour amid poverty and violence, yet brimming with wealth and opportunity. From this emerged a new Fifth Avenue skyscraper that captured the era's spirit. Introducing Trump Tower. At 202 meters, it was the city's tallest all-glass building. Clad in bronze with interiors of pink white-veined marble, mirrors, and brass, it screamed 1980s. Housing some of New York's most elite residential, commercial, and retail spaces, it featured an 18-meter waterfall and, rumor has it, a gold toilet. Some call it tacky, others pure opulence, and that's likely the intention. To build Trump Tower, an older icon was sacrificed, the Bonwit Teller store. Opened in 1929, this 12-story limestone and granite landmark, designed by Grand Central's architects Warren and Wetmore, was targeted by Donald Trump, who acquired the site in 1979. He planned its demolition for his skyscraper, hiring architect Dare Scott, who later shared with New York Magazine Trump's vision: "It needs to dazzle to succeed." Preservationists fought to save two 4-meter Art Deco sculptures and a nickel-plated grille above the store's entrance, promised to the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Both were destroyed when preservation efforts delayed construction. This wasn't the only controversy. Later issues included the exploitation, scriptare te padocumentuar de NJ Padinga Sindicata e Punes. Trump Tower epitomizes the unchecked ambitions of the 1980s, a time of Reaganomics, real estate surges, and stock market volatility. Capitalism, growth, and success reigned, regardless of cost. In later years, the tower became a flashpoint for protests and support regarding the former president, growing more polarizing than at its inception, transforming from a symbol of decadence to one of division. A building's symbolism can shift over time or in a single moment. The world was transformed on 9/11. New York and its skyscrapers faced an identity crisis. How do you design a skyscraper after 9/11? Are skyscrapers even desirable anymore? In the early 2000s, these questions lingered unanswered. Some argued American cities should abandon skyscrapers, fearing they'd attract future attacks. Architect David Childs noted that many clients were hesitant to build such prominent, iconic structures again. 9/11 was a massive trauma for New York City, a setback in every sense, especially emotionally, with lives lost and widespread emotional impact across the region. The question was whether skyscrapers would vanish forever. One of the few notable skyscrapers built in this period was the Hearst Tower, rising a modest 182 meters. While the world grappled with the future of high-rises, Foster Plus Partners pressed forward, completing a project rooted in the past. The firm, known for blending modern and historical architecture at the British Museum and Reichstag, now applied this approach vertically. Adding an extension atop the existing Hearst Tower was somewhat easier than for most buildings, as the historic structure was designed to support at least 7 additional stories, possibly up to 20. It also had 6 elevator shafts, far more than typical for its size. The building's facade isn't just visually striking, its diagonal grid stems from its supporting trusses. Yet despite its bold design, the Hearst Tower remains somewhat overlooked, best known as the first skyscraper to rise in New York post 9/11. Eventually, the city's pause on high-rises began to lift, and engineers and developers found themselves racing for space. The skyscraper wasn't finished, it was reimagined. Post 9/11 predictions of New York's and the skyscraper's decline were greatly overstated. As the 2000s transitioned into the early 2010s, the redeveloped World Trade Center emerged in Lower Manhattan, filling the void left in the skyline. Shaped by emotion, politics, and compromise, the tallest new skyscraper echoed the silhouette of the former Twin Towers, as if fused into one. It reached a symbolic 1,776 feet, referencing the year of American independence, overlooking twin sunken waterfalls, marking the footprints of the lost towers, their cascading water muffling the city's noise and offering a space for contemplation. New York began to heal, but it would never forget. The rebuilding at Ground Zero marked a turning point, quietly allowing the city to resume building tall. The high-rise returned, but for a new era. The era of imposing office towers faded. Architecture became an investment. There's little land left to develop. In Manhattan, so as the 2010s advanced, developers grew creative, building skyscrapers over active rail yards and pushing engineering boundaries. The 1920s had Jazz and Gatsby, but the 2020s have a new elite, the top 1% of the 1%. Never has so much wealth been concentrated among so few, and they need places to invest it. Enter Billionaires Row. To build on the scarce 57th Street plots with towers tall enough for Central Park views and sufficient floor space for profit, developers spent years securing air rights from surrounding properties. This allowed them to consolidate those rights, enabling taller towers while preventing nearby buildings from obstructing views. The result is 100-57, the world's slimmest skyscraper, soaring 435 meters, but only 18 meters wide. It offers ultra-luxury residences and nods to the past with a classic step design in terracotta, a material unseen in towers since Art Deco days. This striking, pencil-thin tower and its neighbors reflect New York's latest driver, extreme wealth. These structures are no longer mere real estate, they're assets. Their luxury apartments are less homes and more sky vaults, often purchased and left vacant to preserve value. In mid-2021, half the properties in the area stood empty. Loved or loathed, these ultra-slim towers are permanent markers of this chapter in New York's story, rising amid growing resentment toward billionaires in an increasingly unpredictable world. What lies ahead for New York? That question has always sparked our imagination. The distant future, though uncertain, might bring flying cars and unimaginable super towers. But the near future is clearer. The skyscrapers of the 2030s are being planned now, offering a glimpse. Surprisingly, we're seeing a revival of massive office buildings, reminiscent of the Chrysler and Empire State. New York is poised for its next skyscraper surge, with at least 4 new supertalls adding 11 million square feet of real estate to the island. This stems from a single 2017 decision, the rezoning of Midtown East. Don't glaze over at rezoning, it's fascinating, we promise. Midtown East faces a challenge. It's a premier business hub with over 60 million square feet of office space, 250,000 jobs, and numerous Fortune 500 firms. But its buildings are aging, averaging over 70 years old. Midtown, particularly around Grand Central, home to the iconic Chrysler Building, had struggled in the 21st century, ill-equipped for the needs of large digital businesses with smaller floor plates. The area's historic fabric needed renewal. In response, the City Council approved a bold rezoning, allowing denser office towers. In return, developers must fund a district improvement fund to enhance transit and pedestrian networks, including subway upgrades around Grand Central. You might be thinking these skyscrapers, designed pre-2020, were meant for a different world. COVID-19 can be characterized as a pandemic. The office as we know it is over. A recession looms as the Federal Reserve raises interest rates to curb inflation. Recent years haven't set the stage for an office tower revival, yet it echoes the Empire State Building's rise, which added vast commercial space during the Great Depression. We may be seeing a shift in work patterns and possibly building occupancy, but cities aren't finished. I believe cities are the future and must remain so. 270 Park Avenue, a 423-meter supertall, benefits from this increased density, designed like stacked dominoes. Slightly taller than the 1973 Twin Towers, it revives the classic stepped form, softening its imposing presence. But 175 Park Avenue, also called Project Commodore, makes no such concession. Rising 480 meters across from the Chrysler Building, it will entirely obscure this New York icon, the structure that began our tale now eclipsed by the relentless race or the skies it ignited nearly a century ago. The Chrysler Building may have been the world's tallest for less than a year and disliked at first. But it embodies New York. It's daring and audacious, born of fierce rivalry, a capitalist beacon, and a stunning work of art. It's both an eyesore and one of the most breathtaking structures ever created. What happens when it's hidden? New York, like all cities, is resilient because cities are vital to civilization and economies. The energy and historical investment in New York give it a lasting edge. It could fade as Rome did in 300, but New York endures as a hub of innovation, vitality, and opportunity. A city's skyline reveals much about its people and priorities, whether it's a church spire, a towering office block, a half-vacant luxury tower, or a true icon. Each is a testament to its time. Our buildings reflect who we are and what we value. This holds true worldwide, but nowhere is it more evident than in New York. New buildings may face initial disdain, but the city isn't owned by one person, era, or structure. It's constantly evolving, as it should be. New York City will never be complete.